Hello and welcome to another episode of Latitude. I'm Maruf Raza. In a major diplomatic achievement with enormous geopolitical implications, the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council and Germany have clinched a historic deal with Iran with an interim agreement that shall for 6 months limit Iran's ability to enrich uranium that could help it make nuclear weapons and allow for strict international inspections that could monitor Iran's nuclear weapons program. And later in the show, 5 years after the 26/11 attacks on Mumbai, when 10 LET terrorists came in via the Arabian Sea from Pakistan and killed 166 people, India remains vulnerable to terror attacks, especially in its coastal areas, as the Maldives has informed the Indian government on LET's latest designs to attack a coastal city in southern India. Our guest this week to look at the implications of the nuclear deal with Iran is Mr. Mark Fitzpatrick from the International Institute of Strategic Studies in Washington, D.C., where he is the director of the Non-Proliferation and Disarmament Programs. Mr. Fitzpatrick is a well-known voice on Middle East, and he will analyze the changing geopolitics of the region following the deal with Iran. And later in the show, to answer questions on the vulnerability of Indian cities on India's coastline to possible terror attacks, we have Mr. Rahul Roy Chaudhary from IISS in London, a maritime expert and has earlier served on India's National Security Council Secretariat in the Prime Minister's office. He will be joining us this time from New Delhi. Iran's Hassan Rouhani won the last elections on the promise of good relations with the West. And with the signing of the interim nuclear agreement in Geneva, Iran seems ready to jump back onto the world stage. But not everyone seems happy with the deal that could enhance Iran's importance in the region and the world. And Israel has called this a historic mistake.
Good evening. Today,
after being on the brink of war for more than 30 years, America has got Iran to sign a nuclear deal that aims to curb Tehran from making a nuclear bomb. The historic deal, signed between Iran and America, along with 5 other world powers, the permanent members of the UN Security Council as well as Germany, allows Iran to use its nuclear plants to generate electricity but not to make bombs. The Americans are congratulating themselves.
I spoke personally with President Rouhani of Iran earlier this fall. Secretary Kerry has met multiple times with Iran's foreign minister. And we have pursued intensive diplomacy, bilaterally with the Iranians and together with our P5+1 partners. That diplomacy opened up a new path toward a world that is more secure, a future in which we can verify that Iran's nuclear program is peaceful and that it cannot build a nuclear weapon. While today's announcement is just a first step, it achieves a great deal. For the first time in nearly a decade, we have halted the progress of the Iranian nuclear program, and key parts of the program will be rolled back. Iran has committed to halting certain levels of enrichment and neutralizing part of its stockpiles.
In return for the concessions by Iran, around $7 billion in international sanctions are to be lifted. With the sanctions lifted, Iran's sagging economy will benefit greatly. They will be able to export more oil to more countries and import more consumer goods.
اقداماتی که طرف مقابل هم انجام میده موقتی و محدود هست. مهمترینش اضافه نشدن تحریم‌هاست، ولی از اون مهمتر رفع برخی به اصطلاح ممانعت‌های غیرقانونی باز من نظر ماست که اجازه نمیداده دارایی‌های ایران که از طریق فروش نفت به دست میاد به داخل کشور منتقل بشه.
But everyone is not happy. Sunni-dominated Saudi Arabia isn't so happy as Shiite Iran has always been a rival. But importantly, Israel is upset too. The pressure on Iran is gone, it says. And too little has been gained. The fact is, this nuclear deal has disturbed strategic alliances in the Middle East.
It is, first of all, a bad outcome because it's a missed opportunity. Secondly, the agreement in the understanding in Geneva does not roll back the infrastructure of the Iranian military nuclear project. And specifically, among other things, we can refer to the centrifuges and to the heavy water reactor.
For India, the deal in Geneva is a double boon. It means easier petroleum imports and at cheaper prices. After the deal, the price of petroleum has already begun to fall, although marginally, and it will certainly ease India's current account deficit.
So this deal, if it opens up the oil sector for Iran, will certainly help us access oil from Iran. Iran is or was a major supplier. Today, imports have gone down. The other aspect would be stability in the Middle East, where, as you know, many of our people work in the Gulf countries. And overall, the economy, if it opens up, if Iran is allowed to become a normal member of the Committee of Nations, then the economic prospects increase.
Due to international dynamics, India had cut imports from Iran to an extent. Now, the oil will flow and India's refineries will hum. India believes this reconciliation between us and Iran will have an all-rounded benefit, from a smooth US withdrawal in Afghanistan to India's bilateral ties with Iran and energy issues in the entire region.
Most experts are of the view that everyone will probably gain from this new arrangement with Iran, with the exception of Saudi Arabia and Israel, who are obviously quite suspicious of the new arrangement that's come into place. And our guest this week is Mr. Mark Fitzpatrick from ISS in Washington, D.C., who is also the author of The Iranian Nuclear Crisis, Avoiding Worst-Case Outcomes. He will examine the impact of Iran's nuclear agreement with the P5+1 countries. Mr. Fitzpatrick, my first question. In brief, what is the key achievement of this deal with Iran?
This deal on the 25th of November was the first time that Iran and the Western countries have stopped progress in Iran's nuclear program. Every aspect of the sensitive parts of the program have been capped, the enrichment and the potential plutonium path. Nothing was dismantled, nothing was removed, but capping the program is a major achievement, and Iran was able to see some sanctions relief for the first time.
With Iran likely to enter into a dialogue with the United States, what would be the benefits to the Obama administration from this new arrangement? And if this process fails, how will it impact on Mr. Obama's standing?
The deal with Iran is a foreign policy victory for President Obama, who has been trying for the past 5 years to find a way to engage with Iran and to persuade Iran to stop its apparent march toward a nuclear weapons capability. He has stopped that, and I think he will be rewarded for it. But it's just an interim deal, and it could fall apart. If the Congress imposes new sanctions, there could be other ways that the deal could fall apart. And they're looking now to a longer-term agreement, which, if he could pull that off, would be an even greater victory for President Obama. But if he doesn't, it could be viewed as a failure.
So how does this deal impact on the future geopolitics of West Asia, particularly with reference to Iran's relations with Israel and Saudi Arabia?
The deal effectively puts off any talk about a military option. Until recently, there was a real possibility that the Iranian nuclear crisis could erupt, creating another war. That's now off the table for the time being. The region will be more peaceful and stable as a result, unless the whole thing unravels, and that's still a possibility.
And could Iran be used to counter Pakistan's influence in Afghanistan in particular? And how could this deal benefit India and Indo-Iran relations?
I think that this deal, while it is focused on nuclear issues, could be expanded upon to bring Iran into an engagement with the United States and other powers on other issues, particularly Afghanistan, where there is a commonality of interest in having a peaceful, stable Afghanistan. Now, Iran and Pakistan's relations could also be improved by this deal, because there has been talk that if the deal, if Iran continued its nuclear expansion, Saudi Arabia would seek nuclear weapons options of its own, turning perhaps to Pakistan. If Pakistan were to supply nuclear weapons to Saudi Arabia, which I don't think they would do, but conceivably people were talking about that, this would involve Pakistan versus Iran. It would involve Pakistan in the Shiite-Sunni split in the Arab world. So what started as a problem in Iran then could have ripple effects spreading to South Asia. The deal at least means that that won't be happening. And I think it could create positive externalities in Afghanistan that if they could contribute to peaceful settlement of issues in Afghanistan, it could have also positive repercussions for Pakistan. But I don't want to, this ripple effect, I don't know how far we want to extend it.
What has failed the observation perhaps of most observers is the fact that Iran, by virtue of its size, location, and its strategic weight, is already a potential regional power in the Middle East, and now coming back into the fold as it will after this arrangement, it will clearly upset the equation that exists in the region.